Hello and welcome. I'm Jeslyn Wheeless. I'm a storyteller and folk singer. And this is Rosie, my son Ben's golden retriever. She's 1 year old and not necessarily perfectly trained. I want to celebrate St. Patrick's Day with you. It's one of my favorite holidays, always on March 17th. And on that day, remember to wear green. Today, I'm going to sing an Irish folk song for you and tell one of my favorite stories, an Irish folk tale. I hope you enjoy it. This is an Irish folk song entitled Brendameer Stream. I used to love to hear my mother sing in harmony with her brother Robert. There's a bower of roses by Brendameer Stream, and the nightingale sings by it all the day long. In the time of my childhood 'twas like a sweet dream to sit in the roses and hear the birds song. Bower and its music I never forget, but often when alone in the bloom of the year, I think, is that nightingale singing there yet? Are the roses still bright by the calm? In honor of St. Patrick's Day, I'm going to tell you an Irish folk tale entitled The Peddlar of Ballaghaderreen. This is one of my favorites. Longer ago than I can tell you, and twice as long ago as you can tell me, there lived a peddler in Ballaghaderreen. He lived in a cabin so small that it had but one room to it. And that room was so small that the peddler could stand in the center of it, and without taking a single step, he could lift the latch of the front door, lift the latch of the back door, and hang the kettle over the fire. That's how small and cozy it was. Now, outside the cabin, the peddler had a garden. And in the garden, he planted potatoes, cabbages, onions, and carrots. And in the center of the garden was a cherry tree, as tall and brave as any cherry tree in all of Ireland. Now, when the vegetables in his garden started to ripen, all the rabbits in the neighborhoods thereabouts came and ate the vegetables until they were all gone. And when the cherries started to ripen on the cherry tree, well, the birds in the neighborhoods thereabouts came and ate all the cherries until all of them were gone. The neighbors saw this happening and they worried about the peddler. They said, "Master Peddler, you're letting the rabbits steal from you. They're eating all your vegetables. And the birds are eating all your cherries. You'll have nothing left for yourself." But the peddler only laughed and said, "They're not stealing at all. Why, the birds on yonder cherry tree sing sweeter than they do on any tree in all of Ireland, and the wee rabbits are good company for an old man who lives by himself." Now, on days, whenever there was a wedding or a fair in the village, the peddler would take his backpack and fill it full of things to sell. Then, putting one foot in front of the other, he would make his way to the village square. There, he would display his things and call out to the passers going by, "Come buy a trinket, come buy a toy. Come buy a scarf in scarlet or yellow, And soon the peddler would be surrounded by children and lads and lasses, all picking up his wares and asking him the price of each one. And like as not, there would be a barefoot boy in ragged clothes who would pick up the pocket knife and say hopefully, "Master Peddler, how much do you want for this pocket knife?" And the peddler would say, "Half a crown." But the boy would put it down sorrowfully and turn to walk away. "I don't have half of that," he'd say, "nor am I ever likely to." And as the peddler saw him walking away, the peddler picked up the pocket knife and hurried after the boy. He slipped it into his pocket and said, "Now there, that pocket knife rests a deal more comfortable in your pocket than ever it did in my pack. You take it and God bless you." And some days there would be a girl dressed in rags who would pick up a scarf and look at it. "Master Peddler, how much did you want for this pretty scarf?" 1 shilling 6 pence would be the answer, and she would put it down sorrowfully and turn to go, and the peddler would pick it up and hurry after her. He would tie it round her curls himself and say, "Now, that kerchief looks a deal prettier on your curls than ever it did in my pack. You take it, and God bless you." And on days when there were many poor children, the peddler would make his way homeward with almost an empty pack and hardly any coins in his pockets. And on those days, he would sing all the way home. Again, the neighbors saw what was happening and they worried about the peddler. They said, "Master Peddler, you're supposed to be selling your wares, not giving them away. As time goes by, one day you may have no money left to buy food. Then what will you eat?" He just shook his head and smiled. "Why," they said, "even the dogs follow you. Every time you go for a walk, a homeless dog is following you, sure of a noonday bread and cheese." The peddler smiled because that was true. A dog would always follow him wherever he went. Now, on some days when there was no wedding and no feast in the village, the peddler would leave his pack at home because those were the days that he would go out and sit himself down on a neighbor's doorstep, and soon he would be surrounded by children, and those were the days when he told them stories. He would tell them the stories about the saints and the heroes, and he would tell them to always keep a kind word and gentle hand for everyone. And the peddler knew how to tell the stories in such a way that the children would hold them close in their hearts until they were old. Now, spring follows winter, and summer follows spring, and when winter came again, the peddler had grown old. One day when he came home, he had no wares in his pack at all, and no money in his pockets. His cupboards were bare. He had nothing to eat. And the peddler went to bed and dreamed as a hungry person often dreams. His dream was about St. Patrick. He dreamed that St. Patrick was standing in the doorway of his house, and St. Patrick was speaking to him in a voice as low as the wind over the bogs. And St. Patrick was saying to him, "Peddler, Peddler of Ballaghaderreen, take the road to Dublin. When you reach the bridge that crosses the Liffey River, you will hear what you were meant to hear." In the morning, when the peddler awoke, he remembered all the details of the dream, but he was weak from hunger. He could not walk all the way to Dublin. But the second night, once again he dreamed St. Patrick standing in the doorway, Peddler, Peddler of Ballaghaderreen, take the road to Dublin town. When you reach the bridge that crosses the Liffey River, you will hear what you were meant to hear. The next morning, once again, the peddler remembered the dream and thought it was strange to dream the same dream twice in a row. When he went to bed that night, he dreamed the same dream again. And when he woke up, he said to himself, if I have dreamed this same dream 3 nights in a row, I'm going. He put his pack on his back out of sheer habits, and putting one foot in front of the other, he made his way to Dublin. He found the bridge that crossed the Liffey River, and there he stood the whole day, watching the passers-by. And though a great tide of people passed this way, and a great tide of people passed that way, not one of them even said good day to the peddler. And when the sun began to set, the peddler shook his head and said, I'll just go find an alleyway and lie me down like an old dog. But then someone clapped him on the back. He turned around and it was a stranger. And the man said, I am the owner of the inn there. And I have been watching you through my window today. I'm very curious. Why did you come here to Dublin, and why did you stand on the bridge all day? The peddler began to try to tell him. I had a strange dream 3 nights in a row. But before he could say another word, the owner of the inn began to laugh. He laughed at the peddler. He said, you came all the way to Dublin because of some silly dream. I could tell by the look on your face that you are a fool. I bet you don't have a single penny in your pocket. Now, the peddler turned and started to walk away. But the man said, now wait. Come into the inn with me and eat and drink and rest. That is all you need. And the peddler did. And when he was refreshed, the man said to him, now, satisfy my curiosity. Why did you come here, and why did you stand on the bridge all day? And the peddler began to tell him, in my dream, I dreamed that St. Patrick stood in the doorway of my house and told me, peddler, take the road to Dublin. If you stand on the bridge that crosses the Liffey River, you will hear what you were meant to hear again. The owner of the inn laughed and laughed right in the peddler's face. He said, what a fool you are. I had a silly dream too. Actually, I had it 3 nights in a row too. I do not listen to stupid dreams. But in my dream, it's funny, in my dream, St. Patrick was standing there at the door of the inn that I own, and he was saying to me, owner of the inn, go to Ballaghaderreen. If you enter the garden where there is a cherry tree, dig deep beneath that tree, and you will find gold. The owner of the inn could not stop laughing. He laughed and he laughed. What a stupid dream. What a fool you are to follow a dream. Well, the peddler turned on his heels, and putting one foot in front of the other, he walked all the way back to Ballaghaderreen. He went in his house and took up a shovel. Then he went out to the cherry tree and he began to dig. He digged and dug until he hit on something hard. Then he pushed the dirt away, and it was a treasure chest. He uncovered it and pulled it out. It was full of gold. Spanish doubloons, and he thought to himself, I'm a rich man. And I cannot begin to be telling you all the kind things he did with that money. But one of the things he did was to build a resting place at the crossroads there, so that poor travelers could rest on their journeys. And when he died, the neighbors had a statue built of him. There he stood at the crossroads with a pack on his back and a dog at his heels. And that is the story of the Peddlar of Ballaghaderreen.